Thank you so much, both Ron and Heather. And thank you, Camille, for gracing us with your poems and your spirit. And my dear husband, Joe, who you'll be hearing from shortly. Thank you to Alaska Quarterly Review, who's published a number of my poems over the years and that I've read with great, great interest. Wonderful guest editors, just filled with really excellent, fine literature. I thought I would read a poem that came straight out of one of my trips to Alaska. I've made a few. I lived in Alaska for quite some time, and that was really an experience for someone from Southern California. So this is called Juno. I was in the small town of Juno, Alaska, the capital, for a summer, working at the Red Dog Saloon. I don't know if any of you know of the Red Dog, but it was pretty famous. And a lot of people that were working on the oil, in the pipeline would come in after hours. This is called Juno Spring. In Alaska, I slept in a bed on stilts, one arm pressed against the ice-feathered window, the heat on high, sweat darkening the collar of my cotton thermals. I worked hard to buy that bed, hiked toward it when the men in the booths were finished crushing $100 bills into my hand. Pitchers of beer balanced on my shoulder, set down like pots of gold. My shift ended at 5 a.m. Station tables wiped clean, salt and peppers replenished, ketchups married. I walked the dirt road in my stained apron and snow boots, wool scarf, secondhand gloves, steam rising off the backs of horses, wading chest deep in fog. I walked home slow under Orion, his starry belt heavy beneath the cold carved moon. My room was still, quiet, squares of starlight set down like blank pages on the yellow quilt. I left the heat on because I could afford it, the house hot as a sauna, and I shed my sweater and skirt, towed off my boots, slung my damp socks over the oil heater's coils. I don't know now why I ever left. I slept like the dead, while outside my window, the sun rose low over the glacier, and the glacier did its best to hold on. Though one morning I woke to hear it giving up, sloughing off a chunk of antediluvian ice, a sound like an iron door opening on a bent hinge. Those undefined days, I stared into the blue scar where the ice face had been, so clear and crystalline it hurt. I slept in my small room, and all night, or what passed for night, that far north, the geography of the world outside my window was breaking and falling and changing shape. And I woke to it and looked at it and didn't speak. The majesty of that place can sometimes be completely overwhelming. And so here maybe are a couple of newer poems. This one is for Thelma and Louise, which I had to include so that people would understand the final image in the poem, because many people are young. I had forgotten that, and they may not have seen Thelma and Louise. And after I read this poem at a reading, the woman who was running the reading said, I said, I've always wanted to write a poem about Thelma and Louise. And she said, oh, don't worry, honey, you will. And I thought, well, I just read it. She had no idea. So now it's for Thelma and Louise. I'll be here on my back porch. Tonight, the sky is pulling its endless carts of stars across a canvas of cracked black paint, the constellations falling into place. Bear, harp, Job's coffin. Job, who died old and full of days. And though he suffered senselessly, in the final chapter, he gets his wife, his children, the land he tended back. The original happy ending. And what of our world's suffering? Descendants, as we are, of Job. The doors of our workplaces chained, locked, our families sick and dying, our lives lived alone, drowning in obscurity. Will we find and name a new constellation after the virus, the contagion constellation, the corona dusk? I suppose I began to miss the movies first, gathering in the dark, my shoulders brushing up against my animal kind, all of us exchanging breath, our strangers' hearts beating as one heart, as the huge women on screen clasped hands and drove off the edge of the Grand Canyon. And with a last kiss, the canvas backdrop turns white, the camera's aperture narrowing, the house lights coming up, a herd of souls walking toward the open doors who had all seen the same thing, scene after scene, laughing our herd laughter, crying our hard human tears. And some of you may have seen the report on CNN of the ancient snack stall that was uncovered recently in Pompeii. And I was fascinated by it. It's beautiful. You should look it up. And I found out the name of these snack stalls were Termipalliums. I'm not really sure how you'd pronounce that, but and so this is called the Termipallium. Even in 79 AD, people loved street food. All the young Romans flocking around the sizzling terracotta pots, the stalls frescoed with chickens and hanging ducks, hot drinks served in ceramic two-handled pateras filled with warm wine and spices. Their sandaled feet glimmered as they milled around, waving hellos, smudging one another's cheeks with kisses, murmuring gossip, complaining about the crazy rise in the price of wheat, soups and stews, skewered meats, stacks of flatbread, honey cakes, and candy made with figs. They sprawled on the steps or sat near a neighbor's open door, stood under a blur of windows, someone playing a lyre, barefoot children singing the Ode of Horace. Just like New York before the pandemic, before the many retreated and retired to their living rooms to watch the news on a loop, alone with a cat or dog, a furry stay against the nothing of loneliness, their dreams a passport to fear. I used to see the excavated people of Pompeii, frozen in time, caught curled in sleep or kneeling, a couple fucking, though there is one of a possible father propped in what looks like an easy chair, a mother bouncing a child on her lap, as if they decided in their final moments to be happy, to go into the afterlife covered in ash, buried alive by joy. And this poem is for my mother. My last book was filled with 20 poems about my mother. She died a while ago, and but I keep writing those poems to her. I don't think I'll ever stop. And this one is, again, you know, if you're young, you may not know this, but when I was growing up, many of us had Singer sewing machines in our houses, and we all made our clothes from scratch. I know that's hard to believe, but that's what we did. And so this is for my mother, and it's called Singer. If I could go back to the living room window of my childhood house, look again through the pane, it would be a telescope lens through which I might see the first woman I ever met, my mother, at her sewing machine, rewinding the bobbin, little spool with holes like an old movie reel our tiny lives spun inside of. I might see her long piano fingers touch the balance wheel, the throat plate, the presser bar, one bare foot working the treadle, her heel revealing only the first three letters in black lettuced metal, sin. My mother was what some called a sinful woman, divorced, pregnant without a husband, a baby boy given up for adoption, remarried, another baby born of another man, a one-night stand while her husband was away at war. She drank too much, thought too much, laughed with her head thrown back, danced with anyone. Too pretty, too brainy, too tall, her black hair a snare that hooked men in. But right now, she's fully visible, stretching the fabric for a kitchen curtain, swatches she salvaged from the deep sale bins, using the selvage for a hem, thereby cutting her handiwork in half. The black oiled mechanism banging out dress after dress, tablecloths and runners, nothing she couldn't cobble together from the waste of others. She was a very peculiar mother, and by now you can see why we loved her. She was a lit fuse in the rain. She turned from her work and set those same fingers on the piano keys and pulled music through the air. Making something from nothing was what she was good at. Love, children, pants and skirts to dress them in, a table covered with cherries on which the beautiful food appeared, roses from her front yard garden in an old cracked vase, her long arms around our shoulders, saying, sit still, eat, try not to spill anything. And this last one is another fairly new poem, and it's called Life on Earth. The odds are we should never have been born. Not one of us. Not 1 in 400 trillion, to be exact. Only one among the 250 million released in a flood of semen that glides like a glassine limousine filled with tadpoles of possible people, one of whom may or may not be you. A being made of water and blood, a creature with eyeballs and limbs that end in fists, you with all your particular perfumes, the chords of your sinewy legs singing as they form, your organs humming and buzzing with new life, moonbeams lighting up your brain's gray coils, the exquisite hills of your face, the human toy your mother longs for, your father yearns to hold, the unmistakable you who will take your first breath, your first step, bang a copper pot with a wooden spoon, trace the lichen growing on a boulder you climb to see the wild expanse of a field, the one whose heart will yield to the yellow forsythia, named after William Forsythe, not the American actor with piercing blue eyes, but the Scottish botanist who discovered the buttery bells on a highland hillside blooming to beat the band, zigzagging down an unknown Scottish slope. And those are only a few of the things you will one day know, slowly chipping away at your ignorance and doubt. You who were born from ashes and will return to ash. When you think you might be through with this body and soul, look down at an anthill or up at the stars. Remember your gambler chances, the bounty of good luck you were born for. Thank you. Thank you.